Hello, my name is Landon. I am a high school student doing a research about human trafficking, and this is my interviewee.
My
Can you
name is
please?
Angelica. I'm a probation officer for Santa Clara County, and I've been doing this for about 10 years now.
Thank you, Angelica. Thank you for your time. Oh, okay. We'll get started with the first question. What do you believe is the biggest obstacle for human trafficking victims after rescue?
Um, well, having worked with several victims of human trafficking, the biggest obstacle for them is reintegrating back into the community, getting back into their families, getting back into school, which most of them have not gone to for years since they've been victims. Just trying to live a normal life outside of being victimized. That has been the hardest obstacle for most to overcome, and some of them don't actually overcome it, and they end up, going into more serious crimes themselves because they never get that opportunity to fully heal themselves. So I would say integrating back into their everyday life.
Thank you. And could there be a trust issue or past trauma from being captured or being trafficked?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Most of them, of course, they get into this because they put their trust in somebody who they feel loves them. So for them, it's hard to go back and trust somebody else who thinks that they really do love them when the whole time they're thinking, are they going to bring me back into this life that I finally got out of? So there is that huge trust factor that is essentially broken, and how do you repair that for them? It's a big dilemma that everybody's facing when dealing with human trafficking victims.
Thank you. That was a great answer.
You're welcome.
Question number two. Do you think victims of human trafficking get enough help slash resources after being rescued?
I think that most of them themselves don't even know what they want really because they're so victimized. They're just essentially brainwashed in thinking this is their lifestyle. So when it comes to what resources that they need, they they're not sure. They're angry, they're upset, they're sad, they're scared. So it's really hard to figure out what it is to give them. Um, Really, the bare basics to start. But when they don't know themselves what they need, it's really hard to really hone in on the what to give them. But yes, there's some, but there's definitely not enough.
Okay, thank you. Question number three. What do you think human trafficking victims need the most after rescue?
Mental health. Mental health is so big and so crucial because if they're not in the right mindset to be ready to heal, their whole body, physical and spiritual, is not going to follow suit. So uh, getting them that emotional, the trauma centered emotional healing to not get over this, because there's no way they can ever get over what happened, but to help them process their situation, and to just let them feel everything and know that there are there people there to help them to build that trust, to build that community once more, to just ensure that they know that people are in their corner again and that they're not going to be victimized any further. So definitely mental health.
And do you think that the government or the clinics are doing there or there are just enough help for them to, you know, do you just think that there is enough help for these victims with mental health, or do you think that the government needs to do more to fully, get them back, um, like fully help them and try and help reintegrate them back into a normal life?
I think some communities have a lot of resources. I know Santa Clara County has an abundant amount just because we're in a very large metropolitan area. So we have so many programs and so many advocates that are ready and willing to help these victims, boys and girls. But when you get into more rural areas where they don't have access to that, the victims get victimized again because they're left out, they're kind of shunned because of their needs, so they don't get the full blown mental health, wrap around their head because they just don't have it in some places. The funding isn't there. The support isn't there. Some people don't even realize how big of an issue human trafficking is, so they're not advocating for these resources and this help. So yeah, they in certain places they could there needs to be more. There's such a disparity between the larger areas and the smaller areas where most of the trafficking victims come from, just because there's not enough knowledge about it in those sections, and it just continues on and on. So yeah, definitely there needs to be more.
Okay, thank you. Question number four. Do you think the government is doing enough to prosecute and convict human traffickers?
No, not at all. The justice system itself is a very long and drawn out process. There's you can be sitting in your jail cell while you're awaiting prosecution, and you can be sending out messages and getting recruiting more people to victimize others. Once you get prosecuted and convicted, you still have your right to appeals and you have the right to fight your case more and more. So it's very difficult, especially because a lot of the victims of the human traffickers are scared to testify against the ones who put them in there in the first place, because again there's that whole trust issue. They trusted them, they loved them, they groomed them for months and years. So when it finally comes to testifying, they're scared and they don't. And so it's hard to convict somebody without that evidence of that firsthand knowledge, because then everything else becomes, hearsay, and their defense attorney can fight it. Um, but I think that if there's enough support and advocacy for the victims, then it can get done. But they're not prosecuting, they're not even charging them with the high charges that needs to be done, um, as often as they should. I know the FBI investigates it based on local investigations, but again, it doesn't get as you don't get the convictions, seen that you want. It's unfortunate.
Okay, thank you. And how would you help a minor who is a victim differently from an adult? If
Oh,
you would help them the same.
um, very similar, but yet still very much the same. Um, so for the minors that we've helped, it was again a lot of mental health services, which adults would need. But for minors, you would need to teach them how to get back into school. You need to teach them how to talk to their and be back in with their families again. You need to teach the families how to be able to talk to them, how to be able to approach them, because they're going to have breakdowns, they're going to have outbursts, they're going to have so many emotionally traumatic flashbacks, and it's going to come out in their behavior and their conduct. And it's with juveniles, it's very easy to say, oh, they're doing okay right now, but inside they're not, because they cannot process what it is that they're doing as clearly as an adult can. So it's a lot more one on one, intensive, you know, everyday therapy and checking in on them, and just trying to show them that, what, this isn't a cycle. We're not going to be here to victimize you again. So with juvenile adults, both get the emotional, get the mental health, get the physical, get them to the clinics. But with juveniles, I would say it's a lot more intense of making sure that you really show them that this this isn't how adults treat you. This isn't how the world is. This isn't how, you know, you were meant to be treated. And I think that's the really difficult part because they start to believe that that's what they deserve, and it's not that way. So it's very much basically rewriting their history at that point in their childhood and trying to help them before it turns into something worse as an adult. So I think that with juveniles, you really have to hone in on getting something that really works with them, whether it's group therapy, one-on-one therapy, um, you know, anything trauma informed, trauma centered, so that you can really get to the root of their healing.
Well, thank you.
You're
Those are,
welcome.
those are all the questions. Once again, I'd like to thank you for your time. You
Thanks.
know, while we're conducting this interview.